WordPress Accessibility Day 2024. Accessible design. WCAG or Trendy? No, WCAG and Trendy. With speaker Zsolt Edelényi, certified professional in web accessibility. This presentation was recorded October 2024.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to WordPress Accessibility Day 2024. My name is Kelly Crowley, and I'm an accessible design consultant, a writer, and a coach. I'm also a Paralympian and a member of the disability community. Thank you for joining us for Accessible Design, WCAG or Trendy? No, WCAG and Trendy with Zsolt Edelényi. Zsolt is a certified professional in web accessibility based in Hungary. He delved into the realm of accessibility a decade ago after witnessing the challenges his blind wife faced accessing websites. He believes that ensuring access to digital products is inevitable for long-term success and ethical business practices. Previously, Zsolt developed over 100 accessible WordPress suites using his own theme. Currently, he leads audits and guides organizations towards achieving accessibility maturity via consulting. During the webinar, please feel free to use the Q&A section in Zoom to ask your questions, and we'll answer them at the end of the session. You can use the chat to connect with other attendees. And now I'll turn it over to you, Zsolt.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you see my presentation? I share it. So thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for pronouncing my name very well. I'm really passionate about accessibility. My wife is blind and I'm deaf in one ear, and I also have a color blindness and dysgraphia. I have a story. Hearing with only one ear, it's impossible for me to identify where sounds are coming from. After about a month of dating, we went for a walk on a beautiful island by the Danube. We heard music playing. My wife asked, "What's that sound?" I said to her, "If you can tell me where it's coming from, I can tell you what it is." This story represents the connection between people. We need to work together to get things done. This experience tells me that collaboration is key to overcoming challenges. Accessibility is no different. It's about creating an environment where everyone, regardless of their abilities, can participate fully and independently. Whether it's navigating a website or booking a seat at a concert, accessibility ensures that everyone can get things done efficiently and with dignity. Just to picture this, a user asks a computer for available seats in a music hall. The designer wrote red squares with an X inside for booked seats and green squares with a dot inside for available ones. This is inclusive for everybody. Even the colorblind user can select a free seat because not only the color, but the dot inside makes them different. Learning objectives. We have 3 practical outcomes from this presentation. First of all, many people think that a trendy website cannot be accessible. I offer a fresh look and show a new way of designing a website. Second, we, the experts, overemphasize the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, the WCAG. It's a standard, not a method. The success criteria is important, but even more important to know your users with different abilities. In addition, many people think that it's enough to comply with the law by using a plugin. If you have a trendy website, why would you need an overlay? Accessibility comes from a website owner strategy called accessibility in mind. If you succeed, your site will be available to users with disabilities. In addition, the majority of your users will get an even better user experience. In my presentation, I include 3 polls, and you can see the QR code on my presentation. Please scan it, or there is a URL in the chat. And if you go there, you can use the poll. What's the first word that comes to mind when you think of a trendy web design? If you have phone or you have the URL, please vote. I'm telling you that I've already made this poll with other presentations. I received many different answers. Most of them are extremely the same what I think of the trendy web design. This number is I don't understand this. Thank you. You can say anyone what you think. Aesthetic, flashy. That's very good. Aesthetic is a very, very, very important. Low contrast. I've never heard that, but I admire your one. Gradients. Gradients means that you like to use very advanced UX elements. Animated, yes. This creates a more engaging user experience. That's good. Customizable, flashy, fast, yes. Simple, low contrast, sexy, responsive, gradients, aesthetic, beautiful and usable colors. I'm still missing some points. These are very important, that there are new items for me. But I see that many of you like simplicity and easy of use. That's very close to accessibility. Sexy, aesthetic, fast. Okay, I think it's enough for now. Thank you very much. I'm going to continue my presentation. The next is that what I think of a trendy web design is. It means applying 3 points. First of all, something that is not new, that a trendy website based on basic UX principles. These are the followings: clear page hierarchy, simple and consistent labels, consistent menus and layout across the pages, micro animations such as hover effects, loading indicators, and responsiveness, but real responsiveness, where all views retain full functionality. Just a side note, this principle, what I've listed is available in my speaker's note of my presentation that will be available on the website of this event. My second point of trendy website is that using advanced functions and features. Some examples: making voice recognition and screen reader software compatible with the website. Integrating social media platforms such as Facebook, X, and YouTube. Using modern site interactions such as tabs and drop-downs. Applying modern client scripts like Ajax search. And the good news is that every function and feature can be implemented in an accessible way. And finally, trendy sites use enhanced visuals like followings: high quality videos and photos, special effects like parallax scrolling, simple, clear, and well-sized call to action buttons, organic shapes, flowing borders, three-dimensional elements, and gradient and shadows, as you mentioned. I listed 4 domains: general, colors, dynamic elements, and targets. Where are they from? I made a list of 50 points for creating an inclusive web page, but we don't have many hours to go through. Therefore, I grouped them into 10 categories and picked only the 4 most important to focus on. Now I can spend 7 minutes on each one. At the end, I provide you with resources where you can go on learning. The first area, general guidelines. Know your users. You need to know more than just WCAG success criteria. You also need to understand different abilities of users. I mean different abilities, not disabilities. Accessibility is for everyone. If there are blocking errors, some users can't use your website at all, and many other people find it more difficult to use. There are many users whose abilities are different from an average user, however, they are not disabled. For example, users with dyslexia, color blindness, like me, hearing impairment, ADHD, many people has, autism spectrum disorder, just a broken arm, or a headache. A headache can make it hard to think. You might throw out your phone out of the window if you can't solve the reCAPTCHA for the 5th time. In addition, there are many special circumstances that requires inclusive design, like browsing on a sunny beach, watching a video in a silent library, using a laptop with a broken touchpad. These examples are only a few. You can find more than 100 on the speaker's note of my presentation. All right, let's talk about the disabilities now. These can be very distinct. The Paralympics finished a month ago. You may have watched some competition. I enjoyed the wheelchair rugby. They moved fast like a dodgem cars. The classification has 67 categories, each different. For example, athletes in T11 and T12 can run only with a guide. Lack of screen reader support on your sites creates a blocking barrier for them. Some people are born with disabilities, while others acquire them later in life. Disabilities can be either permanent or temporary. One thing they all have in common is that when a person visits a website and encounters difficulty with a basic contact form, it can result in feelings of humiliation. In 1997, Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web, said, "The power of the web is in its universality. Access by everyone, regardless of disability, is an essential aspect." So, how shall we start designing for everyone? How early shall we start? You should start from the definition of the goals and objectives. Here is an example for a good definition. Website redesign with maximize accessibility and UX. I will go into the details into user stories. Although some designers may not use them, I want to illustrate their usefulness. If you want to create a professional website, user stories are the best place to outline all your expectations, including accessibility. I'll give you some examples that how are these coming from the knowledge of your users. The template of the user story is the following. As a user, I want to do something, so I can do that. As a deaf user, I want all website videos to have accurate captions, so I can follow the audio content. As a user working outdoors in bright sunlight on a mobile phone, I want the website to have enough color contrast, so I can get the phone number of the desired service. As a colorblind user, I want information presented in ways other than just color, so I can book a seat without help. As a blind user, I want the website to work fully with my screen reader, so I can navigate into another page of the website. Again, more examples in the speaker's note. If you consider the specific needs of your users at the very beginning of the design process, you will end up with a product that can be used by everyone. Just to imagine the absurdity of some accessibility plugins, here is a fictitious user story. As a user with cognitive impairment, I want a border of all targets, so I can activate the cognitive disability profile. Go another key point in the general section. Construct the best design processes and choose the best tools. Some design tools, such as Figma, offer strong accessibility features, while others don't. Choosing the right tools can save money and ensure that your design is on the right track from the start. I'm not going to talk about the shift left process here because you are probably aware that catching errors late increases cost significantly. I mean, really significantly. If an acceptance test uncovers a problem caused by poor design, it would cost 40 times more. I give you a best practice. To make a team of your front-end developers more efficient, establish a clear token naming convention. This is for translating visual design into code. Design tokens are design decisions that are translated into data. Using this, developers should be able to look at the design file and easily find the specific design tokens for a simple name of typography elements. This can be instructions, anything else. For example, design tokens represented in Figma by variables, styles, or annotations. What kind of tokens can you add? You can add the accessible name as annotations for a button with an icon. You can add a user preference token to a dynamic element that gets disabled by a user preference settings. You can add a token for the name of the main region. These tokens can be added by an accessibility designer or expert. Without them, developers have to figure things out for themselves, which can lead to errors and higher costs. As may you have noticed, I said that designers also need to be aware of accessibility. Having the right knowledge can significantly reduce the cost of developing a conforming product. It's a good idea to bring in an accessibility expert to help the product owner to clarify the definition of done and also to review tasks. Use of colors. In my introduction, I've already mentioned the rule that information should be conveyed in different sensory types, not only colors. This lets 10 to 20% more users be satisfied with your website. The wording of the related success criteria is the following. Color is not used as the only visual means of conveying information, indicating an action, prompting a response, or distinguishing a visual element. Colors are not enough, but what are the other visual means? These can be symbols, size, patterns, shapes, borders, tooltips, lines, fonts, and so on. Without going into details, I recommend the very best practice when starting a new design or redesign. Make the color palette inclusive. If you create the right colors at the very beginning, you won't have to worry too much about the contrast in the design process. Let's say your primary brand color is deep blue with a slight greenish tinge. This color works well on a white background and can be used for either a background or a text. The secondary color is a light cyan that has a contrast ratio of 1.58 to 1 to the primary brand color. We need to find a third that is suitable for indicating different states of components. For example, in a radio button circle, a checkbox square, or a focus indicator. This needs to have a 3:1 contrast ratio to the brand color. This pink would be good for that. Now comes the hardest part. We need to choose two different colors for the link and the text. Both need a contrast ratio of 1.5 to 1 to white, and a contrast ratio of 3:1 to each other. Adding color pairs to your color palette makes it easier to apply them to your design. Some other considerations. Trendy designs often use gradient backgrounds for text, especially in key areas such as headlines or call to action buttons. Smooth gradients with gentle transitions are less likely to interfere with readability. Avoid complex backgrounds or patterns to the text because it can make reading more difficult and slower. According to WCAG, the use of gradient is acceptable as long as all the colors meet the required contrast ratio. Another best practice, which definitely works within the long run, create a second palette with limited and reversed colors. You can use the same tokens as the original palette, and developers will be able to create it in no time. The second theme will be used in the Prefers color scheme. This is a new CSS feature that is supported by all major operating systems. The reason is that many people use dark mode, and by creating this second theme, your dark mode users will get the site with your colors. I need to talk about the relationship between color and visual overload. The question is, should web design be simple or full of information? Some users suffer from visual overload when there is a lot of text and links on a page. But in many cases, this is a necessity. Look at a web shop that requires many visual elements such as badges, reviews, and additional information. But it's a fact that too much information can overwhelm users. A clean and simple layout helps users focus while still delivering the necessary content. Professional UX experts are capable of solving this problem. They can categorize data into two groups. Some information should be hidden because it's irrelevant to most users. Less important information should be hidden by default, and you can use modern design elements to display them upon user interaction. This can be tooltips, drop-downs, or tabs. If your design meets these UX expectations, you don't need to use too many colors or too little contrast. And finally, remember that non-HTML contents also need to meet contrast ratio. Dynamic contents. Let's turn to our third domain, dynamic contents. No website can be trendy without them. I'll show you some key points. The design of perpetuum mobiles. I mean following components that play automatically and run in an endless loop. This can be animated GIFs, hero videos, advertising videos, slideshow carousels, marquees, infinite scrolls, and so on. The basic principle is to use them freely in web design, but ensure that users can easily control them. Many users leave your website if they cannot control it. Here are a few creative solutions to provide control. Stop within 5 seconds. Use controls like stop, pause, start. Delay autoplay and let the user explore control buttons. Add an overlay requiring a click or keyboard activation to start the movement. Use confirmation dialogues to let the user decide. And allow browser and operating system settings to control dynamic element based on user preferences. Now we go to the second poll. Pointing back to the user stories, such as creating user preferences for a website. What is your experience? Please answer the following questions. Do you or anyone you know use user preferences in any way? For example, I set up my Android phone to show larger fonts, and I expect that web page would apply my user preference. Currently, most of them ignore it. So the possible answers: I don't know anyone who uses it. I know someone who uses the operating system basic settings. This can be font size, colors, and color temperature. I know someone who uses the operating system accessibility features like screen reader, touch assistant, color contrast. I know someone who uses browser settings or extensions. This can set font size, focus visibles, and many other things. Maybe individual CSS. I know someone who uses user preferences in other ways. If you don't mind, please write your experience into the chat. I see very interesting polls. 60% use browser settings or extensions. In my last presentation, there was nobody who polled this answer. No one used operating system settings. And it seems that everyone knows somebody who uses preferences. Okay, anyway, you can do the poll and continue, but we can go on because our time is short. The next consideration: be moderate. In my experience, content is added without enough thought. This is the case in many times. For example, someone might think that a moving GIF looks cool. Consequently, it included into the website without checking how it affects the user experience or accessibility. While some people might be impressed by dynamic elements, others could find them annoying. Trendy websites shouldn't use dynamic content just for fun. It's there to drive conversion and share information. Here are a few advices. Limit parallel scrolling to one instance per page. Keep dynamic elements small and shallow. Ensure that it's well spaced from text, and this increases readability. The good news that there are many types of inclusive dynamic content that work well on a trendy website. I'm going to list some of them, divided into 4 groups. Group 1, organizing information elements like drop-downs, also known as slideshow or accordion components, tabs, which is a very good component to make content into a clear structure. Tooltips that provide additional details without overwhelming the users. Group 2 related to forms like dialogues, auto suggestions in field, conditional form fields, combo boxes. Group 3 related to interaction like real-time data updates, expandable image galleries, interactive maps, augmented reality, interactive sliders. And the group 4 is content related, interactive infographics, parallax scrolling, infinite scroll. infinite scroll. Remember that the default use of these elements is often not accessible, but all of them can be used in a way that suits all users. And lastly, dynamic elements increase cognitive loads. This may seem like a minor issue, but it's not. People with reduced cognitive function, whether due to a headache, stress, or a medical condition, may find these elements overwhelming. Our time is short, so step into our last domain, targets. There are more types as follows. Links within text. It's crucial to distinguish links from regular text using more than just color. Navigation menu links. This often seems easy, but careful planning is necessary, especially for complex mega menus. Consistency is key, even when menus are different in pages or users. It's also important to make parent menus easy to find. Application menu buttons. Application menus are different from navigation menus. These are typically associated with actions or commands within a web application like save, open, settings, and so on. Call to action buttons. These typically receive significant design attention and usually meet accessibility standards with a good contrast. Form targets like buttons, sliders, switches, auto suggestions, inactive buttons, and so on. Switches should be designed so users can easily tell their status. Sliders need to display values when navigated via keyboard. Auto suggestion should have a good contrast and be resizable. Inactive buttons don't have a minimum contrast requirement, but it's essential to clearly differentiate between active and inactive states. Player control buttons for interactive with media players and special targets like chessboard or locations. Designing special targets requires specialized expertise. These targets need extra care due to the complexity of user interaction. Top considerations. The target on a web page is crucial for a user interaction and must be available for everyone. Landing pages which drive profits are typically very good. This is a proof that accessibility can directly contribute to increased revenue. Here's a top list of my consideration. Proper contrast. Make sure that clickable link stands out from non-clickable elements. Visual cues. Links should be distinct from non-links in at least 2 ways. Proper sizing for touch. Ensure that clickable areas are large enough for touch interactions. The WCAG recommends a minimum size of 24 CSS pixel circle for touch areas. But for better usability, aim for an even bigger size. Responsiveness. Using only 4 or 5 different screens for simple design might not be enough. Sometimes a high-quality fluid grid can help, but you might need extra adjustments to make sure all content and functions fit well on each viewport, and ensure that design is consistent across different devices. Focus indicators. Design your site that there is enough space for focus indicator. While you can use different visual cues, an outline is often the most practical and consistent method. Clear and simple labeling. Use straightforward language for labels. While creative wording can be fun, it may not be clear to everyone. For example, instead of saying access restricted to individuals aged 18 and above, simply say 18 and older only. Differentiate links and buttons. Link should navigate to other pages, while buttons should perform functions. Use button for sliders, tabs, or single page applications. Yes, hiding target by default. Many times the target appears when it's hovered. In other cases, the target is hidden by fixed position element. If targets are hidden, write a token to instruct developers that it should be visible in case of hover or focus. This was a very brief overview. 40 minutes just isn't enough time. We got to the last poll. Based on our experience, arrange the following web accessibility challenges in order to difficulty. I'm very curious what you are telling us and voting. I would say that differentiation between links and text are probably the most easier part of this, but I don't want to predict anything. I think that creating an accessible color palette is a quite challenging maybe don't rely on color alone. I think it's not too difficult, but maybe some other people think it's quite difficult. We have only one participant, 2 participants. Okay, getting back. Adding a stop to an infinitely moving object. This is difficult because, yes, because it's an additional design element. Yeah, and you can somehow arrange it into your design. But I would say the future is that using user preferences everywhere. So if operation systems and the browsers will be compatible with accessibility, you set your user preference that don't move any moving object and the website will apply it. I think this is the future, not now. So sorry, I think our time is short. We started a little bit later. Don't rely on colon alone. I think this is one of the most important, but many people think that is quite difficult. Okay. While you are voting, I'm trying to summarize everything. If you already have a website and you are thinking about making accessible, you might want to think about whether you will need to redesign. A bold new concept might cost a little bit more, but it could give you a real competitive advantage. I know it would be great if a cheap plugin could make all the changes to be inclusive. I'm not here to explain why accessibility overlays don't work, but I just wanted to say that this can't make your website much better. They don't fix things like consistency, clear language, or good typography, or semantic structure. Okay. Keep accessibility in mind when you are designing, maintaining, or remediating a website. This means recognizing that different users have different needs. That's why it's so great that modern web technology can include most of the trendy elements. But it's really important to use them in a soulful way and follow the specific guidelines. Here are some resources. Smashing magazine and there are very good UX magazine dealing with accessibility. Understanding success criteria is a part of a WCAG, and each criteria has understanding section with resources, detailed explanations, examples, and test cases. DECU University comprehensive learning materials. There is a academic courses, how to design for accessibility for UX designers. I've reviewed many courses and I think this is the best. Figma, Venngage, we have experience with Figma. We don't have experience with Venngage. If you have, please let me know. And today, Johnny Albert will present the inclusive design strategies for WordPress professionals. And the last year's Carrie Fisher and Jonathan Whiting has very good presentation about this topic. Takeaways very shortly. Make accessibility a core part of your project and don't rely on plugins. 2. Understand that users have a wide range of abilities. 3. Bring in experts to train your designers and give them the best tools. And 4. If you don't have enough knowledge, ask an expert. I believe that a true accessibility isn't just a quick fix. It's a commitment to a thoughtful and inclusive design. It may require more effort upfront, but the rewards are unmeasurable. By creating websites that everyone can use, we are not merely just following guidelines, but building a better web for everyone. Thank you for your time and thanks to my colleagues who helped me to prepare this presentation. And I will take questions now.
Right. Thank you, Zsolt, for that great explanation of the basics of accessible web design. We have a question in the Q&A. The question is, what is one of the most difficult design requests you had to make accessible, and what was your approach?
That's a good question. Let's go back to this polling. For us, the color part was the most difficult because when we are start to create a new website, the designers want very specific colors, and it's very difficult to find those colors which have a good contrast ratio to each other. That was the most difficult part. I think the other thing is much more easier. Is it okay?
Yeah, yes. Okay. So we have our next question is, do you have accessible websites that you think have great design that you could share as examples? Are there any brands that you take inspiration from?
Fortunately not. There are many good accessible web design, and I would say that, for example, in Hungary, I don't know. So there are two web shops, which has a very accessible web design. One of them made the accessibility redesign in 5 years' time, and after it announced that 3.5 times more users are buying from this web shop. I don't want to say the name of this website because it's an international company. It's a quite good web shop, accessible, trendy, very good. And I also like Google's accessibility. Most of the Google applications can be quite good design, and they are also accessible.
Okay. We have maybe one or two questions here. The next one is, if you have to do a major brand redesign, what element of accessibility would you implement first? And what is the most important?
Sorry to say, but there is no most important. Accessibility is not very difficult for me, but I think it's quite complex because what we, the experts can see that many different users have many different abilities, and we are doing an accessible website. We can think all of them, and we find a solution which fits all of them. There is no most important because everyone is important. Maybe you can rank the most important as this is blocking for some people and this is not blocking for some people. For example, if you have a unlabeled target, an unlabeled button, it can be blocking for screen reader users as for many other people, for voice recognition software users. This is a blocking element. If you have a color contrast not enough, maybe a little bit less, this is not a blocking one. But I think accessibility is collecting all of this information together and putting into the one trendy solution.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending today, and thank you for the great questions in the Q&A. You can continue the conversation in the chat or on social media using hashtag WPA11YDay and hashtag WPAD2024, WPAD 2024. We also would appreciate it if you would go to 2024.wpaccessibility.day/feedback to provide anonymous feedback for our speakers on their presentations. You can enter to win a t-shirt while you're there. And stay tuned for How to Read a VPAT and ACR coming up next with Giarn Wild at 4 o'clock UTC. While you're waiting, don't forget to visit our sponsors' pages to grab virtual swag and enter for a chance to win great prizes. See you right after the break.
See you.
Thank you to WordPress Accessibility Day 2024 sponsors. Platinum sponsor 20i. Easily build, deploy, and manage all your projects with 20i managed WordPress hosting. One UI for all your servers, apps, sites, databases, security, DNS, and email. Perfect for agencies, e-commerce, developers, multi-site hosting, and high-traffic sites. Platinum sponsor Equalize Digital. Since all they do is accessibility, every post on their blog is an accessibility resource. You can find webinar recordings, articles, and additional resources at equalizedigital.com/resources. Platinum sponsor WP Engine. WP Engine provides the most relied upon and trusted WordPress products for businesses, brands, and agencies of all sizes. Thanks to our gold sponsors, GoDaddy, Grackle Docs, Gravity Forms, Green Geeks, TPGI, and Yoast. And thank you to our silver sponsors, CodeGeek, Drake Cooper, Elementor, Overnight Website, Pressable, Second Melody, and Accessibility Collective.